Critics in the media and generations X and Y have lamented the lack of civic engagement amongst millennials and the youth today. Yet in this age of information, teens seem more educated than ever before. They're also incredibly vocal about their opinions, and broadcasting them across numerous platforms is second nature. In this week's episode of Teens Today, we talk to teenagers about their social activism, political engagement, and what gets them fired up about today's society. I'm your host, Stacey Chan. Great, well, thank you all so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk about today's topic, civic engagement. And that's really just a fancy word for what you are all interested in. So before we get into that, could you please all introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Talia Fine, and I go to Ralston Middle School.
Hi, I'm Elian Mendoza Davis, and I go to Design Tech High School.
I'm Karis Nixon, and I go to Hillsdale High School.
Great, thanks Talia, Elian, and Karis. So as I was saying, civic engagement just really means anything that you're interested in, anything that fires you up or that you're passionate about. Now, I know a few of your interests, but for everyone watching at home, what are things that you love doing outside of school?
I play soccer and water polo.
And what led you to soccer and water polo?
My mom played soccer in high school, and I just grew up playing it.
How old were you when you first started?
6, I think.
Okay. Is it like AYSO or a league or in school?
Now I play CYSA.
Okay. Different league. I probably grew up in a different area than the Bay Area. Elian, what about you? What about outside school activities gets you really excited or motivated?
Mainly sports. I go to the gym a lot and play basketball, but I like soccer more, and I like to skateboard and drum a lot too.
Very cool. Karis?
Well, I'm really heavily involved in the drama program at my school, so I do a lot of musicals and plays, and I'm also in choir and jazz band.
That's very neat. And it sounds like all of you have so many different activities that you're involved in, but there's actually a lot of schools across the US where they're just slashing budgets because they just don't have money to have these extracurricular programs. What do you guys think about that? And is that even remotely an issue with the schools that you're all at?
Well, I think that one thing that I've noticed about a lot of the schools is that some of the first things that they cut are the arts programs, and that can be really harmful to a lot of the students who do see art as a possible career opportunity for them and somewhere that they actually want to take their life in that direction. So it is really sad to see schools have to make that decision to cut those programs that can really mean a lot to their students.
That's a really good point. Karis, is the arts something you want to go into? I know you're a senior.
Well, career-wise, not so much, but they are something that I really think need to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. So even though I'm planning on pursuing careers or a career in a different area, I do think that I'm going to continue to be involved in arts throughout my life.
And so how come you know you're going to be involved in arts your whole life, but you don't want to make that a career?
Well, since art can be such a competitive area and such an unknown, since it's based purely on luck and your ability to get yourself out there, whereas some other careers are kind of based on more building your skills and just interviewing and stuff, I think that it's best not to put all your eggs in one basket and completely rely on something.
Very fair. Now, Talia, Elian, you guys are more on the sports side. So what would you do if suddenly the next day you could no longer do sports? How would you lobby your school administrators or your teachers, or what would you say to them?
Well, for me, it's a brand new school this year, so it's just freshmen, and they weren't really planning on having sports, but we had a couple because of the parents. But if they cut the sports, I would be disappointed, especially soccer, because that's what I really want to do for the rest of my life. But there's leagues outside of school, and that's what I'm actually playing right now. I'm trying out for a club team right now, and I'm excited for that, but I would go all out rage mode if they cut sports. I wouldn't be happy.
I want to see Elian rage mode. What does that entail?
Punching a hole through a door.
How do you think that would communicate to teachers?
Not well.
But it would show, a lot of these events are happening across the U.S. where people are using violence to get attention in the media. We see events happening in Ferguson and a lot of protests all over. Do you guys think violence is an effective way to get the attention of media and the people in power?
Personally, I don't think violence is the answer to problems, but in terms of getting attention, violence is a little extreme, but sometimes you do need extreme measures to get attention, so it's an interesting trade-off to make.
And building off of what Talia said, I do think that a lot of times with these groups that are kind of pushed into a corner, minority groups that aren't having their voices heard, it's like there's only so much you can do when it comes to peaceful protesting and just speaking out. And if you're not being listened to and you continue to be cornered, it's not that they're being the predator, it's that they're being the prey that's been cornered and is now lashing out back. It's a last resort sort of thing.
And I think in the Bay Area, we have a pretty good diverse mix of people, but amongst the three of you, have you ever seen any minority group being the prey, like you said, Karis, or being displaced in your schools or in society or anything that you've seen?
I think it's one of those things that kind of happens without you realizing it, but happens to everyone for different reasons. But it's definitely something that happens in a lot of areas.
Have you seen like a specific group, or when you say areas, like is it at school, like specific cities in the Bay Area?
I think school is a big one because everyone's kind of in one big melting pot. And so it's easy for that to happen, especially if there are jokes being made about minorities, which happens a lot among teens.
And do you respond to those, or how do you react when someone says a joke that's a little bit off color?
Personally, I just try and ignore it. It's difficult to respond to those because it's easy to get offended.
Eliane, I saw you raise your hand,
Yeah.
so I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
So it's happened to me inside and outside of school, just like personally. Inside of school, it's been staff and students. One staff member, she was a counselor, and she was like an amazing person, and it wasn't really like a major act of kind of discrimination, but it's just like she didn't expect me to be so smart. So when I showed her grades one time, she was like, because she didn't realize I was almost a straight A student, and that kind of surprised her. And students, when like my friends in middle school, like they made a lot of racist comments to me, and I got very easily pissed off about it. And in high school, I don't have too many people making racist comments to me because there's a little more diversity at my high school than middle school. But there are a lot of people who are very discriminatory at my school, but I have to deal with that. And outside of school, me and my friend were actually walking through Lucky's a couple of months ago, and we actually noticed a person following us, and it was actually a security guard dressed as a customer. And it was just very odd because she was just following us out of the two because we weren't really, like we weren't doing anything suspicious. We were just walking, getting some chips, buying it and all that. But it's just because we were probably, not white, and we just looked suspicious and all that, and that's what I've really had to deal with and not get too easily pissed off about it.
That does sound extremely frustrating, especially because, like you said, you're just a teenager, straight A student, clearly not doing anything wrong. So what do you do about that? Do you just keep walking through the supermarket, or how did you respond?
At the supermarket, I just laughed just because it was kind of funny. Just that just because my friend laughed, so it made me a little like laid back, and it was like, okay, it doesn't really matter. At school, in middle school, I actually just couldn't deal with it, and I yelled at my friends sometimes. I just told them to be quiet and shut up. And nowadays, I just be quiet. I don't voice out against anything just because there's too many people that aren't really gonna change, and it's not too much I can do about that. Just accept it, move on. It's gonna be fine.
It's interesting, though, that you said when you got to high school there was more diversity. Do you think that is one of the solutions to make sure that all schools or all cities, societies are more diverse, then we'll be more tolerant?
I think starting out more diverse is a lot better than eventually becoming diverse, because if you don't start out diverse, it's like not going to change. Like say someone's a racist towards black people. They're racist like through middle school and elementary school, and then they hit high school and it's a more diverse community. It's not too likely they're going to change in high school, even though they're more diverse there. I think they should be more diverse like everywhere. So you're just growing up with diversity, always diverse, always equal to people, and that's what I think would help.
So I love this. I want to go a little bit deeper. How do we start getting more diverse? How do we make our cities, our societies more diverse?
Well, personally, I don't think it has to do with making it more diverse, but people are a little bit afraid of what they aren't used to or they don't know. So I think part of getting more used to it towards high school versus middle school is that it becomes more common and people get more used to it in their societies.
Definitely. And would you say that your school is diverse, Talia?
Definitely. Yeah.
What's like the makeup? And it doesn't even have to be ethnic. Like, are there all sorts of groups of people with different interests?
Definitely, definitely. We have lots of sports teams and we have so many school bands and definitely lots of racial comments thrown around about our ethnic diversity at my school, but it's amusing that they throw it around about themselves.
Interesting. Okay, so the off-color jokes that you hear aren't necessarily at a different group, they're about themselves.
More often than not, yeah.
So what do you think that says about the current state of diversity at your school?
Currently, I think that everyone's pretty accepting of each other because it's so diverse, but I can see that in other places it would be more difficult because it's less diverse.
So have you ever been in a situation where it's been predominantly one group or predominantly a majority of a certain type of people?
Yeah, I think also religion has something to do with it. I've been in places where it's been more overpowering on one group than another, and the other group is a minority and they feel, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
A little oppressed, like
Yeah.
in a minority group?
More or less.
Okay, very, very interesting. This is a very dense, deep topic, so thank you so much for sharing all of your thoughts. We're gonna take a quick break and then we're gonna resume the same conversation. So after the first segment, we were talking all about ethnic diversity at school, outside of school, and then Talia started bringing up religion, and we hadn't even touched on that topic. So do any of you three have topics on religious minorities or how that plays into the dynamics at your school and outside of school?
Yeah, because at my school, I actually just recently found out one of my friends isn't particularly fond of Jewish people, and there's this one rapper, Drake, and he actually really does like him, but he actually started disliking him more because he was Jewish, and it was just very odd to me. It's just, I have said comments that aren't, the nicest, and I do want to take them back, but he doesn't feel any really remorse for that, and I just find that odd.
So when you have friends where you just disagree with them on certain points, how do you handle that in your day-to-day conversations?
Well, for me, depending on how close I am with someone, for example, if I have one of my close friends who disagrees with me strongly on a topic, and I know for a fact that they do, I definitely try to just avoid that topic. But with certain people, I know that some friends can be very open to discussion on topics that they have opinions about. So it really depends what kind of people you're talking about and what kind of people you hang out with.
So Karis, if you have a friend who actually is pretty open, do you try to seek out talking about these kind of controversial, touchy subjects?
Well, I'm a little bit odd because I just like talking about controversial things, and some of my friends do as well. And sometimes when we're having conversations, it just floats to those kind of topics. And so when you have friends who are open to these kind of conversations, we do kind of tend to shift towards having those kind of conversations because it gives us an opportunity to share our opinions and to learn what other people's opinions are. And I think that this really helps us know how we feel rather than just kind of think we feel this way.
That's really incredible that you all are so open-minded and mature enough to admit that you have a difference of opinion and then approach a subject. Was there something that comes to mind recently that you were talking about with your friends?
Well, I know there's one example that is a little bit not to that though. So I have one friend who feels really strongly about Ferguson and about the Michael Brown shooting, that she feels really strongly that the officer did nothing wrong and that everything should have been okay. And most of our friends disagree with her on it. And so after one of my friends said that they had this conversation with her about it and that it really frustrated him and that he was really upset afterwards, I was like, okay, you know, I'm just never going to talk about that with her. But most of the time, the opinions that my friends have that differ from each other, they aren't to the extent that it would really cause a rift in our relationship to that extent.
Absolutely. It sounds like you all know when to say, all right, we agree to disagree. And I think something that's probably very different with our generation from your parents' generation, the generations before that, is we have texting and social media. So are most of these conversations happening face-to-face in person, or do you see these playing out in other mediums?
Actually, I've had quite a few debates with friends over text message.
What does that look like?
Very long text messages back and forth.
What was the last text conversation that you had?
The last text debate I had, I think, was about abortion, which is very controversial. And it was very long, and I actually did get frustrated, but I do enjoy the back and forth because I believe that there are two sides to every story. So it was very interesting to see another side.
Do you care to share what your opinions were and what you were debating your friend on?
Well, personally, I am unsure what my beliefs personally, but his beliefs were that he does not believe that it should be legal. And I was curious about why, and it was religion, which is definitely to take into account.
Definitely. And so texting debates, how does that work? Is it very much in real time, or is there like a lull so you can pause and think what you want to say to your friend?
Both, definitely. Like I could be doing something else and I could be thinking about it, or I could read over his and think about it, or I could reply right away, or I could get upset. And we had someone who was actually part of the conversation. It was like a group message, but he was just watching it.
He was a passive observer.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could get pretty heated.
That's what he was keeping us level and still friends.
How long did that debate span from beginning to end?
Oh gosh, about 3 days.
Wow.
We're just back and forth.
Elion Karis, is this common to have these text debates that span multiple days?
Personally, I would definitely prefer to have those kind of conversations face to face because you can never really convey emotion over text. So if I have an argument that disagrees with someone else's argument, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm angry about it, but if you're texting it to them, they might take it that way.
Very fair point. So does this debate cross over in person? Like if you were to see your friend, do you mention the text that you sent last night, or how does that work across two different channels?
With the debate that we had, we were actually in a debate class together, so it just kind of went, it was our own personal thing. We were actually not allowed to debate it in schools, but we were both very passionate about it and curious about what each other thought, so we took it upon ourselves outside of school, but we did bring it up occasionally.
Is this a club that you were participating in outside of school?
No, it was an elective.
Okay. And so is this common to do electives outside of the school curriculum? I'm not super familiar with the structure of this.
Not really. We just had the debate out of our own curiosity.
And is this common? I know there are a lot of different extracurricular groups in school. Like I know when I went to school, we had like a gay-straight alliance, or we had different ethnic groups forming their own extracurricular activities in addition to their regular curriculum. Is that common now at school? Or still common?
I think it's pretty common. I know my school has a lot of different clubs and organizations, and I do think they're really, really important. For example, I've been involved in my school's Gay Straight Alliance for the past 4 years. And one thing that's made me really sad is that at the beginning of the year, the classroom was completely full and there were so many students who wanted to get involved. But towards the end of the year, people just started dropping out over time. And now only 3 or 4 people have been coming to the meetings every week.
And when you say get involved, like what sort of activities does this Gay Straight Alliance do?
Well, we'd have meetings once a week during lunch, and then we would discuss kind of current issues like the state of gay marriage, like which states have legalized gay marriage now, and what kind of gay rights stuff is going on in other countries as well. And then outside of school, we've also organized field trips or volunteer work. For example, there was the Bay Area Youth Summit last year or 2 years ago, and I was able to volunteer to help set that up, and they had a bunch of different LGBT speakers come and give presentations on different topics to do with LGBT rights.
Wow, that sounds really incredible, just very involved about a topic that's heavily debated across the country. So Karis, what compelled you to get involved with the GSA, and what do you think about gay rights in general?
Well, I just think that LGBT rights are some of the most important things it's one of the most important things that's going on at the moment, because there's so many things that are wrong, that are illegal, that, I think that it's honestly ridiculous for gay marriage not to be illegal. And I think it's ridiculous that employers would be able to fire people simply because they're gay or transgender. And knowing these things and not doing anything about it would make me feel guilty. And I think it's really important to get involved in any way I can in order to push for human rights. And I think that gay rights are just some of the most current ones that are the most effective way to get involved.
I love this passion coming out of you. So how do you transmit that and try to rally your peers to care about LGBT rights when, quite honestly, you're all very busy? You have many extracurriculars, homework, all these different activities going on. How do you get them to care about one more thing?
Well, one thing that I know that made me interested in GSA was how fun it seemed. It's a very welcoming, warm environment. And I know that there were a lot of freshmen who came to the school who were struggling with their identities, or they knew what their identities were, but they were scared to show them. And coming to these meetings would inspire them to come out, or it would inspire them to want to make a difference. And it just has a very welcoming feeling to it. And a lot of the activities we organized as well were really fun and sort of party sort of activities. Like we had coming out day where all the LGBT students would walk through this door in the Great Court so everyone could see them and they could wave the rainbow flag and say, hey, I'm here. So that kind of inspired people to want to be involved because it looked so fun and warm.
That sounds very, very, very fun. Do you two have something similar at your schools, or other clubs that celebrate people who are not necessarily in the majority?
At my school, we have an upstanders club, which is not necessarily about minority, but about bullying in general. And it's about recognizing students who do things like stand up for other students just because they see it happening. And I think that's really important, to recognize it when it happens. And some people even do it without even realizing that they're doing it, and that's really good to recognize.
I love that, the random acts of kindness.
Definitely.
And is it because you have seen personally maybe an increase in bullying or any sort of discrimination at school?
I think that there's a lot of discrimination and bullying, or just being mean in general. It happens a lot, and it's definitely something that needs to be identified. And I think that when you identify the people that take it upon themselves to end that, then it definitely helps the balance.
Very cool. So we've got an upstairs club, we've got GSA. Elion, anything that piques your interest at school, or clubs that you think are really, really established for a good cause?
Everyone at our school is basically in a club. It was kind of a requirement at first, but now people just roam around and stuff. But I mainly participate in the leadership club and the art club, and that actually has been really fun because we don't have our own campus. So we are on the Millbrae campus, and last week I think we made a big poster thanking them, and we drew dragons and Vikings on it because our mascot's the dragons and theirs is the Vikings. So we just wanted to thank them, and we just gave them our poster on Friday, and they hung it up.
That's really neat. And I'm intrigued by this leadership club. What does that involve?
It kind of organizes a lot of the events and stuff. We do like spirit weeks. Like around the middle of the year, we did an ice cream social where everyone got ice cream, and we're kind of like the student council of the school because we don't have a student council, but so we kind of take control of majority of everything. We actually just had a dance recently, May 1st, and it was leadership did that because we had a dance committee, but that didn't really work out well. So leadership took control of it and helped plan the dance and everything like that.
So did you volunteer for the club, or is this something you were elected to?
They didn't want too many people to join, so you filled out a survey online, said why do you want to join this club, do you want to join, all that stuff, and you sent it in, and 2 people chose because they kind of were the unofficial leaders of the club, just because they did the most work. So everyone kind of looked to them for leadership, and that's kind of how we got in.
Great. Well, I'm super impressed with the variety of interests that the 3 of you have, and just how involved and educated you are about issues that even adults in Congress and the media can't even agree on. So thank you so much for stopping by, and stay tuned for the next episode of Teens Today. I'm your host, Stacey Chan.